Hello, hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Dominic, and I'm here with Ali, the CEO and founder of Bunk. Thank you so much for being here today. We will be doing a Q&A after, or during, after, before. So please think of any questions you want to ask. But without further ado,
Definitely, and you can
I
ask
will.
me anything, because the
Yes.
topic of banking is only limited in the amount of interest, I guess, but you can ask me about startups, you can ask me about Europe versus US, whatever you're into.
Ask him anything. Yes, I mean, we will just dive right in. You're obviously the founder of a well-known neobank, Bunk, that helps to make managing money across various countries, currencies more seamless. What has, oh my gosh, this mic, okay, sorry. What has been the hardest challenge in taking on an industry like banking and across different regions, countries, and where the laws vary from place to place?
Well, that's actually a really great question. Before I do answer, because we don't have a presence in Denmark, I'm curious, is anyone here familiar with Bunk? Not too bad. Does anybody here actually use Bunk? Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, well, that's the first problem, right? So the issue with money is that it is very heavily regulated, and us as people, as humanity, we love travel, and the advancement in travel and the breaking down of international borders has happened much more quickly than the unification of regulation. So for us as Bunk, if we would want to offer our services here in Denmark, we would have to have local presence, like physical presence. We would have to have contact with the local regulator. We would have to comply with local law and regulation. And all of this slows everything down and makes everything more complicated, especially for people like our lovely host, who has lived in multiple countries. You know, you move around, you need to sign up again. You run into problems because of tax issues, because you need to report all of these different bank accounts to the tax authorities. So I think the number one issue, to answer your question, is regulation. And I think one of the things that Bunk is incredibly good at is to hide all of that complexity so that our users can simply use their bank in the way they want to.
How did you go about, I guess, dealing with all the regulation on the back end? Like, what was the process of tackling that issue as a company?
Yeah, there are no shortcuts, unfortunately. Just it's a lot of discipline and a lot of grinding. Regulators are regulators; they're the same everywhere, more or less. And so you need to spend a lot of time into understanding what they want, what's important to them, to be sure that you're compliant, invest in compliance, while keeping all that stuff on the background so that it doesn't actually hurt the experience for users. That's the real complexity. It's not difficult being compliant. I mean, it's basically a set of rules and you can be compliant. It's difficult being compliant while you create an experience that people enjoy.
What was the hardest market to break into?
Everything.
All of them?
Everything, everything. I've had so for the people who don't know me, Bunk is my third unicorn. I've had two other startups that were both somewhat successful. The difficulty with banking is it's a low interest product, so people usually don't, consider, you don't wake up thinking, hey, today I'm going to go shop for a new bank. It's very heavily regulated. The regulation is fragmented. And all that regulation also kind of forces you to, to create a product that is only marginally different to what's out there.
Have you expanded to the US yet?
We are in the process of applying.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that process. I was going to ask
about. It's very exciting.
What are some, I guess, hurdles, good things, bad things you're expecting as you expand to the US?
Well, I've been living in New York like part of the time for a number of years now. I love the US. I think, it's called the land of the free. at Bank, we call us the bank of the free, so there's a natural match there. Places like New York, San Francisco, both coasts are very international, so that's a natural fit for the audience we're trying to approach. So in that sense, it fits like a glove. But then when it comes to regulation, and I'm sure you'll agree, bureaucracy in the US the last several years has reached its high point, I think. And to be able to get a banking license in the US, you need to deal with 3 regulators: the OCC, the FDIC, and the Fed. So that makes the process a little bit cumbersome.
When do you expect to fully be there? Like, what's the timeline looking like?
I have no clue.
Well, I actually also wanted to, speaking of money as a bank and scaling a company like this, I'm sure it's not cheap to do. What was the process of kind of building this business, and how did you succumb, or how did you manage not to succumb to the pressure of taking on a lot of VC money?
That's a great question, because I think Bank's history is a little bit atypical. We just had a panel with a lot of investors here. I actually self-funded Bank for the first 10 or so years, maybe longer, because for us, Bank emerged out of the financial crisis, the last financial crisis, about 12 years ago. And I'm an engineer by heart. I started coding by 9, and so, when the financial crisis happened and ordinary people were impacted, entrepreneurs had to stop, friends of mine couldn't buy a house or were forced to sell a house. And then as an engineer, it was painful to see that nobody was thinking about structural solutions. Everybody was, trying to blame people, and politicians were, very happy because they finally found a group of people that was more hated than them. And so they were like, yes, we're going to squeeze the bankers. And, that's all fine, and it makes you feel good, but it doesn't solve the problem. And so at Bank, we set out to create a different kind of bank with a laser focus on users, with a different mindset, a different earnings model, a different product, a different experience, to offer a little bit of diversity and thus bringing resilience in the banking system as a whole. And we felt that for the best way for us to achieve that was to have not too many distractions in funding rounds and VCs and PEs that have their place, and but these people need to make a return, and that's their focus, right? And we wanted to build a great product. And so we self-funded for a very, very long time.
When did you decide to take on VC money? Like, what was the moment where you're like, okay, I think I'm ready to fundraise?
There was this moment in time when Bank was growing. We had a significant number of users. We were growing. We had a product that was set out. And so, a VC or a PE, when they stepped in, they would know, like, this is the route these guys are taking. This is what they will do. This is what they won't do. And they knew what they were signing up for. This was, I think, about 3 years ago.
Wow.
And we did a very comparatively small funding round of less than 10%. But it was the largest A round in fintech history, so that's cool. Bank has
How much
had
was
a
it?
lot of firsts. I think it was, we were valued at just shy of 2 billion.
Is it a small funding round?
Yeah, comparatively small. By US standards, it's small. Yeah.
I mean, you launched the product about 10 years ago.
Yes.
Or more, a little more than 10 years now.
The app is now 10 years ago. Yeah. We're going to celebrate soon. It's a couple of weeks.
Party.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about how the product has evolved, because I'm sure your consumer has evolved these past 10 years. So how have you evolved the product in terms of what they need and what customers want these days versus when you first launched 10 years ago?
When we first launched 10 years ago, it was a very simple product, because building a whole banking platform, I mean, if we take a step back with our ideology of building a product that our users love to use, we figured we need to have full control over the entire banking stack. So what we did is we didn't just build an app on top of existing systems. We created the entire system. Today, Bank, to the best of my knowledge, is one of very few companies in the world that has a banking license and an app and the core banking platform. And so when we launched 10 years ago, having all of that finished was a lot of work. We launched with a very simple payments product that allowed you to have the safety and security of a bank, have your own bank account, be able to do payments, be able to do payment requests, which are common now, but at the time were innovative for a bank to have, and to be able to sign up fully digitally using biometrics security as well. All of this was new. This was before the time for Touch ID, before the time of Face ID, before the time of a great many of things that we today now have. All of these things were piloted at the launch of Bank. And the way we adopted is, as these technologies became more and more common, we started focusing on international users more and more. And we started building features for people like our host who move across countries. So today, when you open a bank account, you can have your Dutch bank account, your German bank account, your Spanish bank account, your Irish bank account, all of it in one overview. You can have a dollar account, you can have I think we have Danish krone as well, all in one overview. And all of these features did not exist before.
And how is AI impacting the way you build the business? I'm thinking of like, how are you balancing human labor and, I guess, AI?
So AI is very, very popular now. But actually, when we built Bank, we already had machine learning, which is like the less hip and happening word for AI, or at least it's one of the disciplines of AI. We had machine learning there that helped keep your money safe and your account safe back in 2015 already. So the way we deploy AI is we see it as any other tool in areas where it can be relevant, in areas where it can be beneficial, in areas where it can help the end user experience, can make life easier, or can help keep you extra safe. We deploy it. And because we're technically very proficient and we have full control on our banking platform, we can pick and choose where we deploy. So the first area where we deployed this was safety and security, in monitoring payments, in monitoring your behavior, in making sure that everything is the way it should be. The second place where we deployed this is customer support. Partly thanks to AI, I think the average waiting time of questions is now 47 seconds, which is unheard of in any bank. I mean, I have been customers at many banks, and if you get an answer, it usually takes a couple of hours, and then the answer is, okay, I'll look it up and get back to you, and then it takes a number of days. And then I think one of the more exciting areas where we deploy AI is we have integrated it with our entire marketing engine. And so we generate all of the content, we generate all of the AdWords, we do the bidding of AdWords, we do all of that. It's fully automated. And the benefit is that, historically, as the company scales, the pace of innovation goes down because you get more and more complexity because more and more people are involved. I think the goal we're trying to achieve at Bank is to scale without having to scale people so that we can still remain lean.
And I'll ask a few more questions because I know there's a lot of audience questions coming in, actually. I definitely wanted to ask about the state of digital nomadism.
Yes.
I know that after the pandemic, obviously the idea of a digital nomad became kind of like a really big thing. And I wanted to ask, how has it changed at all in terms of the idea of people like moving around? Has that changed since the pandemic, especially since like now a lot of companies are doing like return to offices and stuff. So I wanted to ask how you've seen that change.
It has changed, and it has changed significantly. There are differences. So, for example, the Netherlands, I think it's a front runner or a back runner, depending on where you think the world should go, in working from home. Also in part-time employees, by the way. Um, Whereas other countries like the US are now actively pushing it to come back to work. But what I do see is regardless of whether coming back to work or working remotely, people are just a lot more flexible in the way they live and the way they move. I mean, 6 years, pandemic is 6 years now, 5 years?
My
when it
gosh,
started? I don't
6
know.
years
Time
already.
flies. I remember at the time I had to explain to a lot of people like this is a Zoom call. You know, we don't need to meet face to face. We can also just be pragmatic and save everybody time. And now everybody, also the more seasoned, experienced people, the older generation is aware of this stuff and can work with it. So I think there are some changes that won't be turned back, regardless of whether we go to the office or not.
All right, I'll ask two more things and I'll jump to audience questions. We spoke about how the product has changed over the past 10 years.
Yes.
How has Europe as a startup land changed in the past 10 years? Because I mean, 3 companies, you've been here for a while. How have you seen Europe as an ecosystem change as a founder?
I think, and I appreciate I'm in Europe, I think Europe is and has been losing out on the international scene in regards to startups. I've been trying to contribute to a different way of thinking that helps Europe to catch up, both in front as well as behind the scenes. I think Europe has changed for the worse. Unfortunately, people think that we can spur innovation by creating more regulation and more rules. I'll give you an example, and I'm sure this is going to make me popular in the Netherlands, but whatever. We had a minister of housing, there's a housing shortage in the Netherlands, who drafted a law to build, I think, 100,000 or 200,000 houses. But the sheer insanity of the whole thing apparently wasn't as clear to everyone as it was to me, because how can you write a law that who are you going to mandate to build those houses? You know, it sounds nice in the newspaper, and I'm sure it helped him in the short term in the polls, but you can't force people to do things. You can't force companies to do things, right? I mean, we tried it. It was called communism. It kind of failed. And unfortunately, Europe has lost the balance between keeping people safe and having the right safeguards for consumers on the one hand, but on the other hand, allowing for people and for companies to have enough space to be innovative and come up with new things. So I'm not very bullish on Europe, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh. What would you like? Well, so I guess, what is your ideal version? If you could change the ecosystem in any way, what would you do?
I think what Europe does really well is, I mean, we have a lot of very smart people, right? If you look at the US, many of the successful companies are being run by Europeans. And, you know, I think Europe should just face the music, call up a bunch of those people and say, hey, you know, you're a very successful whatever. What made you leave? Why did you leave? And I think the answers will be very simple. It's, we're missing a single market in Europe. We're missing a single jurisdiction in Europe. We're missing a single language in Europe. Thanks to Europe, thanks to the euro, we do have, in most countries, a single denomination. But I think it's those 3. And then on top of that is we cannot regulate everything. Yes, thank you. Fellow entrepreneur, I guess.
I'm going to jump to some of the audience questions. Speaking on Europe, one of them is, do you have plans to expand beyond Europe? And if so, where, aside from the US?
Yes, today we are expanding to the US and UK. Those are announced and well known. And we're also working on a number of other regions that are not announced yet, and I'll be happy to announce them at a later time.
Okay. How did you get your first 100 customers, and when did you find a scalable model customer acquisition?
That's a great question. So usually any other business, getting your first couple of customers is very, very difficult. When we launched about 10 years ago, the market was still very anti-bank. And so having this new startup trying to compete head-on with these giant institutions, these giant banks, was very newsworthy. Also because we were the first in 35 years to get a banking permit, so that was a news item by itself. And so we got a lot of media attention, and we got thousands of users within the first 24 hours of launching. So I think there's a number of ways to do it, but if you can pull it off and get a lot of media attention, that's definitely helpful. I think the second part of the question was...
Second part, oh, they already got
disappeared.
It was building consumer...
Oh, scalable
Yeah.
acquisition model.
Yeah.
That is very difficult in the banking sector. But basically, the way we have done it is we have focused on this niche that is currently being underserved, which is the digital nomads, people with an international lifestyle, people who live in one country and maybe have a holiday home somewhere else, people who have a partner that is in a different region, people who like to travel a lot. That is our focus group. Historically, traditional banks cannot serve them because their systems are outdated and they're just organized in a country-by-country basis. And I think that's an area where we can grow at.
You're in a low-interest, high-trust industry. How do you build interest and trust in the financial services?
That's a great question. I think that's very difficult because trust comes with time. I think one of the ways we build trust is we didn't take any shortcuts when it comes to security, privacy, things like that. Despite the fact that we were very small from the start, we went for a full banking license. And that, as you can imagine, that comes with a lot of burden and a lot of safety and security features that we needed to implement. Ever since then, because we are so technically adept, we have invested a lot. And I think if you look at our statistics, you can see that we are actually a lot safer than the other banks. So.
Do you see potential for neobanks to move into the decentralized finance system?
Yes and no. Yes and no. So the no part is, by definition, decentralized finance is not centralized, and neobanks are centralized and regulated. So those two kind of don't mix well. But yes, in the sense that, for example, at Bank Update 28, we launched the ability for you to buy and sell crypto, including Bitcoin. I think what neobanks can do is they can help bridge cryptocurrencies from more financially aware people to the broader market, which is something that we're doing at Bank.
So actually something that I was quite interested with, I guess it's kind of a cheesy question, but you're a solo founder. And so what has it been like building this kind of alone? Like, has there ever been a moment where you wish you had a co-founder or someone to share this kind of lonely experience with?
Every day. Every day. So the first company I started, which is today the world's third largest domain name and web hosting provider, it's called Team Blue. We actually compete with One.com. I saw their building as I was biking by to the thing. But in the very early days, I had a couple of co-founders. But then, you know, our ambitions mismatched, and they ended up being more like employees, and I ended up being more like the founder. And then, you know, ever since then, I've basically been building these companies as a solo founder. I wish it was different. It just isn't. And so there's some benefits and there's some drawbacks, but loneliness is definitely one of the drawbacks.
I kind of don't want to leave on a sad note like that, though. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe let's talk about the future. One last question, I promise.
Yeah. Sorry.
Where do you see the future of Bunk? Like, what is next 5 years for you?
We will be, unless regulators really, really kill us, which I genuinely don't hope, because we bring a lot of value to society. But we will be one of the very, very few, if not the only truly global bank. And that is important because the world, despite some of the noise today, the world is becoming one. I mean, you're US, you're here today. I don't even know what I am. I live in Amsterdam, I live in New York, I travel the whole planet. And these old banks with their old systems will never, ever be able to cater to that.
And that's a good place to leave it. That's all we have time for today. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.